Next, we're going to be making a textured picture frame. We're going to be using our texture makers in the alligator and swirls pattern. I love making picture frames because people love receiving them for gifts. I'm going to prep a paper mache frame with some Bacon Bond. Bacon Bond is an adhesive product that works well between raw oven-baked clay and paper mache or wood surfaces. Just squirt a little on and then spread it out into a thin layer. Now I'm going to let this set and sort of soak into the frame for a little bit while I'm working on my other clay pieces. First, I want to take a piece of this green clay that I've already conditioned through my clay conditioning machine on the thickest setting. And I want to do a nice deep texture in the clay. Before I apply the texture, I want to use water as a release between the clay and the texture maker. So I just squirt a little water across the top, line up my texture maker, and I'm going to go ahead and push really hard to get the texture to bite into the surface of the clay. Once it's there, I'll go ahead and take a clay roller and roll it very hard. Now it's important when you're doing a technique like this that you have a cardstock barrier between the raw clay and your work surface so that the clay continues to be free of the surface and you can move it around and reposition it. I love these texture makers. They're somewhat clear and you can see if you're getting a good deep texture or not. When I'm working with textures, I like them to be nice and deep because then they catch more light and make more shadows, making the whole pattern of the frame just that much more exciting. Another great thing about these being clear is that you can see that the texture is deep, and if you want, you can just peel back the corner and see how deep the texture really is. Once you have that done, you'll want to cut out some squares from the clay. I have already cut out some paper templates that line up with the size of my frame. This would be the corners, and I've even made pieces for each edge so that I have a template to work from. So from the green clay, I'm going to go ahead and cut out 4 corner pieces. I did this using my super slicer. Now we want to line these right up in the corners, right on top of that Bacon Bond. Next, it's time for the middle pieces. Again, I rolled out a blue clay on the thickest setting on my clay conditioning machine, and I used my templates to cut out the shapes. Now these are ready to go in position between the green squares. The Bacon Bond stays smooth and workable until it's baked in your home oven along with the rest of the clay. So you can slide those green corners back and forth if you need to. Now it's time for my long pieces. I'll just put these in place. Now if you have a situation where the clay is too long, don't be afraid to just trim it back with your super slicer and remove the scrap. Sometimes it's good to see the mistakes so then you know what to do when they arise, because they will happen. And the great thing about oven-baked clay is it's so soft and flexible that you can always move it right back into place where you want it. You can even stretch it a bit to cover an area. Okay, now the base of the clay is ready for trim. I'm going to set that aside. I have a third color, and here again, I'm going to work on top of cardstock to make it more so that it won't stick to my base surface. This time I'm going to be using this texture wheel with the rope head inserted. I want to go ahead and spritz again with some water. Then I'll put my fingers on the edge of the clay to hold it down, and with using a lot of pressure I'm going to roll the wheel forward. These wheel heads are awesome because you can adjust how far apart you put them. You can create your own patterns and your own look. Then I'll take my rigid blade and cut right along the outside edge of each pattern. Once I have a piece of rope cut, I want to square off the end, and then I'll line this up right on the seams between my green and blue clay, gently pressing it into place. And that's the cool thing about oven-baked clay is that it sticks to itself. So just with minimal pressure, you can cause those pieces to join each other and become one piece. Now I just want to take the edge of my super slicer and line it up with the edge of the frame and just trim this away. And then I can use that piece here as well. Just push lightly into place and trim. Now I'd use the rest of my rope textures to trim. I would trim these out and go ahead and outline the other areas just like I did this one. This is ready to go in your home oven at 275 for 15 minutes, and when it comes out, voila, you've got the perfect gift.